The heavy iron bolt on my front door is the only thing that lets me sleep, but even now, every time the house settles, I find myself staring at the handle, waiting for it to turn without a sound. It's been 6 months, and I still can't look at a map of the Pacific Northwest without feeling a physical sickness in my stomach. I don't tell this story to people I know. They'd think I'm losing it, or they'd try to offer some logical explanation that I've already burned through 1,000 times in my own head. But I need to get this out. I need it to be documented somewhere, just in case that silver sedan ever shows up in my rearview mirror again. My name is Elias. Last summer, I decided to take a solo road trip from Portland up through the Olympic Peninsula. I'm a freelance graphic designer, which basically means I spend too much time in dark rooms staring at screens, and I was feeling that specific kind of burnout that only trees and silence can fix. I have a 2018 Subaru, reliable, unremarkable, and a tent I barely know how to pitch. The plan was simple: drive until I got tired, find a cheap motel or a campsite, and just exist away from the internet for a week. It was a Tuesday when I hit the stretch of Highway 101 that skirts the coast. The weather was typical for Washington: overcast, misty, and gray. By 7 p.m., the fog had rolled in so thick I could barely see 20 feet in front of my hood. I realized I wasn't going to make it to the state park I'd scouted out on the map. My GPS was flickering in and out of searching for signal, and the gas light had just clicked on. I saw a sign, weathered and peeling: "The Pines Rest 2 miles. Vacancy." It wasn't a chain. It was one of those old-school, L-shaped motels from the 60s that look like they're being slowly reclaimed by the forest. Under any other circumstances, I would have kept driving, but the mist was turning into a heavy, freezing rain, and I didn't want to run out of gas on a logging road in the middle of nowhere. The parking lot was gravel and mostly empty, save for a rusted-out truck near the office and a silver sedan parked at the very far end of the lot, facing the woods. I pulled up to the office, which smelled like stale cigarettes and pine-scented cleaner. The guy behind the counter was young, maybe early 20s, but he had this look in his eyes. Not mean, just completely vacant. He didn't look at my face once. He just stared at my hands as I handed over my credit card. "Room 14, he said, handing me a heavy brass key. "Don't leave your windows open. The damp gets into the carpet." "Anyone else staying here?" I asked, trying to make small talk to ease the weird vibe. He paused, his hand hovering over the bell on the counter. "Just the man in the silver car. He's been here a week. Doesn't come out much." I took my key and drove the 50 feet to room 14. It was tucked into the corner of the L. As I parked, I noticed the silver sedan again. It was a late-model Chrysler, very clean, which felt out of place against the mossy, decaying backdrop of the motel. I didn't see anyone inside, but the exhaust pipe was venting a tiny, almost invisible wisp of steam, like it had just been turned off. I went inside, locked the door, and pushed the little deadbolt. The room was exactly what you'd expect: floral bedspread, a humming mini fridge, and a TV that only picked up static. I was exhausted. I ate a protein bar, scrolled through my dead phone for a bit, and eventually drifted off to the sound of the rain hitting the roof. I woke up at 2:14 a.m. I know the exact time because the red glare of the alarm clock was the only light in the room. The rain had stopped. It was dead silent. You know that kind of silence that feels heavy, like your ears are straining to find a baseline noise, but there's just nothing? Then I heard it. Crunch. Someone was walking on the gravel outside, slow, deliberate steps. They weren't heading toward the office. They were walking along the row of rooms. I sat up, my heart doing that slow, heavy thud in my chest. I told myself it was just the guy from the silver car, maybe going for a smoke. But the footsteps stopped right outside room 14. I held my breath. I didn't move. I stared at the gap between the door and the floor. A shadow broke the faint light coming from the parking lot pole. Someone was standing right there, just standing. There was no knock, no hello, no fumbling for a key, just the presence of another human being 6 inches away from me, separated by a thin piece of wood. Then the doorknob turned. It didn't jiggle, it didn't rattle. It turned slowly, firmly, until it hit the lock. Then it turned back. Then it happened again. Slow, methodical, testing the resistance. My blood went cold. I reached for my phone, but then I remembered, no signal. I looked around the room for a weapon. My only option was a heavy glass ashtray on the nightstand. I gripped it, my knuckles white, waiting for the door to be kicked in. But the person just walked away. I heard the gravel crunching as they moved toward the end of the building, toward the woods. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the chair facing the door until the sun started to turn the fog into a dull, sickly yellow. At 7 a.m., I threw my bag into the Subaru. I didn't even go to the office to check out. I just wanted to leave. As I backed out, I looked over at the silver sedan. It was still there, but the driver's side door was cracked open about an inch. I didn't stop to look. I hit the highway and drove. About 20 miles down the road, I found a gas station that had a working pump and, more importantly, a bar of cell service. I filled up, bought a coffee, and sat in my car, finally feeling the adrenaline start to ebb. I felt stupid. I told myself I'd overreacted. It was probably just a drunk guest at the motel who had the wrong room. It happens. I pulled back onto the 101, heading north toward Port Angeles. 10 minutes later, I saw it. A silver Chrysler. It was about 4 cars back in my rearview mirror. Coincidence, I whispered to myself. It's a common car. I maintained my speed. The silver car maintained its distance. I took a random turn off toward a scenic overlook that I knew was a dead end. The silver car followed. My hands started to shake on the wheel. I didn't pull into the overlook parking lot. I did a sharp U-turn in the middle of the road and sped back toward the highway. The silver car didn't screech its tires or do anything dramatic. It just turned around and kept pace. I wasn't being followed by a maniac in a movie. I was being followed by someone who was very, very patient. I decided to test it. I drove through a small town, pulled into a grocery store parking lot, and went inside. I stood by the frozen food section and watched the entrance. 5 minutes later, the silver sedan pulled into the lot. It didn't park near me. It parked near the exit, facing the road. I called the police. 911, what is your emergency? Hi, I think I'm being followed. I'm at the Safeway in Forks. There's a silver Chrysler. It's been behind me for 50 miles. The operator was calm. Too calm. Did the driver threaten you, sir? Did they brandish a weapon? No, but they're following every turn I take. They were at the motel I stayed at last night. They tried my door handle. Sir, we can send an officer to take a report, but if no crime has been committed, there's not much we can do. Would you like to wait at the store? I looked out the window. A man was getting out of the silver car. He was wearing a plain gray hoodie and jeans. Totally average. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a guy you'd see at a hardware store. He walked toward the grocery store entrance. He's coming inside, I whispered. Sir, stay on the line. I didn't stay on the line. I hung up, bolted out the back service exit near the loading docks, and ran to my car. I peeled out of that parking lot like a coward, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. I spent the next 3 hours driving like a person possessed. I took logging roads, I doubled back, I went through residential neighborhoods. I thought I'd lost him. The road ahead of me was clear, and the road behind me was empty. The sun started to set. The fog returned, thicker than the night before. I was on a narrow, winding road surrounded by old-growth forest. There were no streetlights, no houses, just the wall of trees and the mist. My headlights hit a sign. Road closed, bridge out 5 miles ahead. I groaned and started to look for a place to turn around. As I slowed down, I saw 2 dim lights appear in the mist behind me. Silver Chrysler. He hadn't lost me. He'd just been waiting for the road to narrow. I panicked. I slammed on the gas, thinking I could outrun him, but the road was too slick, too winding. He stayed right there, a constant pair of eyes in my mirror. Then my engine light flickered. The Subaru shuddered. A sharp, rhythmic thumping started coming from my front left tire. No, not now, I begged. I had no choice. I had to pull over. I steered the car into a small gravel turnout overlooking a steep ravine. The forest here was dense, the trees like black skeletons against the gray sky. The silver car pulled in right behind me, blocking my exit. I locked my doors. I grabbed my camping hatchet from the floorboard. My breath was coming in ragged gasps, fogging up the windshield. The man got out of the car. He didn't rush. He didn't scream. He walked to the front of his car, his headlights illuminating him. He was middle-aged, with thinning hair and a face that was almost hauntingly plain. He looked tired. He walked up to my driver's side window. I ducked down, clutching the hatchet. He didn't try to break the glass. He didn't try the handle. He leaned in close to the window, his face inches from the glass. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the back seat of my car. He stayed like that for a long time, maybe a minute, maybe 5. I was paralyzed. I couldn't even scream. Then he tapped on the glass. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. He leaned his mouth close to the seal of the window and spoke. His voice was thin, reedy, and perfectly clear through the glass. "You should check the trunk, Elias." My heart stopped. How did he know my name? I hadn't checked into the motel with my real name. I'd used a business alias I use for freelancing. He turned around, walked back to his car, backed out of the turnout, and drove away. He didn't look back. I sat there for 20 minutes, the hatchet trembling in my hand. The silence of the woods felt like a physical weight pressing down on the roof of the car. Check the trunk. I didn't want to. Every instinct in my body told me to put the car in gear, drive on the rim if I had to, and never stop until I reached a city. But I couldn't move. The thought was a parasite in my brain. I crawled into the back seat and pulled the release for the small pass-through door that leads to the trunk. I didn't want to go outside. I pushed the seat down and shone my flashlight into the dark space of the trunk. My spare tire was gone. My emergency kit was gone. In their place was a small, battery-operated digital recorder and a stack of Polaroids. I reached out, my fingers numb, and grabbed the photos. The first one was of me. I was sleeping. The angle was from the foot of the bed. It was taken in room 14. The second one was of my car, taken from the woods. The third one made me vomit. It was a photo of the man from the silver car. He was sitting in my driver's seat. The timestamp on the photo was from 4 hours ago, while I was inside the grocery store. I picked up the digital recorder and hit play. There was a long stretch of silence, just the sound of wind. Then a voice. Not the man's voice, a woman's voice. She sounded terrified, whispering so quietly I had to hold the speaker to my ear. "He's not the one following you, Elias. He's the one trying to keep up. I'm already inside." The recording ended. I froze. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. In the very back of my Subaru, in the dead zone, behind the rear headrests where the shadows are darkest, I saw a hand. A thin, pale hand with dirt under the fingernails, slowly reaching up to grip the back of my seat. I didn't think. I didn't scream. I threw myself out of the passenger door and ran. I didn't run down the road. I ran straight into the woods, into the thorns and the mud and the pitch-black heart of the forest. I spent the night huddled in a hollow log, clutching that hatchet until my palms bled. I heard things moving in the brush all night. Not animals. Something that moved with purpose, circling my position, breathing softly just out of sight. When the sun came up, I made it back to the road. My car was still there. The doors were wide open. The recorder was gone. The photos were gone. And on my dashboard, written in the condensation of the windshield from the inside, was a single word. Soon. I walked 10 miles until a logging truck picked me up. The police found my car, but they found no fingerprints other than mine. They found no evidence of anyone being in the trunk. They told me I likely had a breakdown brought on by exhaustion and the isolation of the road. I sold the Subaru a week later. I moved to an apartment in the city with 3 roommates and a 24-hour security guard. But here's the thing that keeps me up. Here's the thing that makes me check the iron bolt on my door every 20 minutes. Yesterday, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single silver key. It was a motel key. The brass tag was tarnished, but I could still read the number etched into it. Room 14. And on the back of the tag, someone had scratched a message into the metal with something sharp. "You forgot to lock the window. I don't go outside after dark anymore. I don't take road trips. I don't look in mirrors if the room behind me is dark. Because I know that somewhere out there, on a foggy stretch of the 101, there's a silver car and a person who knows exactly what I look like when I'm sleeping. And I know that sooner or later, I'm going to hear 3 slow knocks on my door.